Hi everybody, Corey here. Today I'm working on a 2008 Polaris Sportsman 400. This is one that I recently purchased and I know that it has a bad starter. So I'm going to show you how to confirm that it is your starter. First off, one of the telltale signs is I turn the key and you'll hear a click. So what that click is that you're hearing is actually your solenoid, which is located right down in there, right by your battery. You can actually access it by coming in under the fender, and you'll see it right there. Those two leads, one goes to your battery and the other one goes to the starter. This short wire right here, that you see this little wire, that's actually what we call an exciter wire, and that goes up to the key. So what happens is when you turn the key, it sends power through that little tiny wire, which then flips a switch, hence the noise that you're hearing, the clicking. That's a switch flipping inside this solenoid, and then it sends power from the battery to the starter. So I hear that noise, I know that my solenoid is working. There's a couple different things you can do to confirm that. If you don't believe the noise, you can take a wrench, for example, and you can actually stick a wrench from one side to the other, carefully, making sure you don't ground it out. But what that does is that actually sends power from one side to the other and then directly to the starter. So, for example, if you were broken down on a trail or something like that and you needed to bypass the solenoid because the solenoid wasn't working, that's how you could start this, by just jumping with a wrench, just like I just did, from one side to the next. Yeah, you'll see a little teeny bit of sparking, but it's not anything that's going to hurt anything. And that just allows power to go from one side to the next, so that way the power went straight to the starter. So since I just did that, I know that I definitely sent power to my starter, and my starter didn't crank. It should have cranked, so I know my starter's bad. You know, that's really the field-based way of figuring out what's going on. The correct way, which you can see I have here, is my multimeter. So, you know, you can test that solenoid just like I did, of course, by making sure that when you flip the switch, that power goes from one side to the other. By using a simple multimeter, you should get around 12 volts from one side to the next. In this case, what I'm doing here, as you can see right on the side of the starter, there's going to be a little red cap. That red cap, you just pop it off, and then you're going to stick your multimeter lead on that positive side, and then you'll stick your ground, obviously, on your ground. And then what you're looking for here is 12 volts when you turn the key, or something pretty close. So you can see I get 11.72 volts. That means I'm definitely getting power to my starter, and my starter's not working, so I can confirm that my starter is in fact the problem. So that's a pretty simple way to troubleshoot the starting system on these Polaris Sportsmans. Not exactly rocket science, but if you've never done it before, hopefully this video will help you out. So now on to changing the starter. That's where things can be a little bit challenging on these Sportsmen. It is, in a little bit of a difficult spot. I already took one of the bolts off that connects the ground here, but that one bolt is pretty easy to get to. It's a simple 10mm bolt, but the other one is actually tucked down in behind here, and you can't get to it without taking this cover off. So in order to take that cover off, you got to take the fender push pins off. You're going to have two Torx head bolts here, two here, a couple of push clips here, and then you'll be able to take this actual bottom fender piece off. I don't know what it's called, wheel well, I guess, or I forget the correct name, but that you'll be able to take this off, and then you're going to be able to get to the bolts on this cover, which go all the way around. And so that's what we're going to do now. And then I will show you what you need to do, because you actually do need to pull the secondary clutch to be able to get in there. And then you'll be able to access that bolt very quickly and easily and then you'll be able to put it all back together. So I'll take all these covers off, and then we'll show you how to pull the clutch. Okay, so I got the covers, the cover off. Everything is opened up. Now we need to remove this bolt here, and that bolt is going to be a 16 millimeter. If you have an impact, use it, because if not, this is going to want to spin. If you don't have an impact, you can kind of wedge something in the primary clutch to make it so that way hopefully it won't spin. But I'll pop this off, and then we should be able to get access through the back of that cover at that point. All right, so I pulled that bolt off, and now I'm going to put a clutch puller in. So I need to be able to pop this primary clutch off of the crankshaft. So in order to be able to do that, you have to have a clutch puller. They're not very expensive. You can order them right on Amazon. It has to be a specific clutch puller for your machine. So make sure that you do some research. I'll try to look up the part number and drop it in the comments below. Anyway, it's a clutch puller. So we're gonna screw this in, and then I'll crank it in with a wrench here in a minute. What you want to do is just get it tight. So you're going to put some torque on it with your wrench ratchet. You could even use an impact a little bit. If it doesn't pop off the shaft, because it should pop off this way, once you've got some tension on it, take a hammer and just hit this. And the tapping, once it's got tension on it, should make this pop off. So don't just keep cranking it in and cranking it in until you think it'll eventually pop off, because you can damage the crank. So just crank it in until you've got, you know, a good amount of tension on there, and then take a hammer and tap this if it doesn't pop off, and that will hopefully pop it right off. Obviously, while you get it out, it's a good time to inspect your clutch and your belt, change your belt if you haven't changed it in a while, etc. But this is how we're going to pop this off. So I'm going to tighten it up, and then I'm going to pop it off. Okay, so I cranked it in, and mine popped right off. I didn't have to tap it with a hammer, but sometimes you do have to. Now, as you can see, right by the crankshaft, you can actually see that there's 3 screws here. One, sorry, it's a little dark. 1, 2, 3. Those are just Phillips screws that actually holds this cover in place. And then what you're going to do is you'll take those off, and then we should have room to be able to pull this cover down and out of the way to be able to access this bolt that's tucked in there on that starter. And then we should be able to take that bolt out, which is a 10 millimeter bolt, and then we'll pull the starter, and then we'll replace it. So that's what we're going to do. We'll be right back. Okay, so get those 3 screws out. As you can see, the cover can now be pulled out, and there's your bolt. So that 10 millimeter bolt needs to come out. The reason why you had to pull this out is because the bolt is too long, and it would have hit the back of this cover, and you wouldn't have been able to get the starter out. So there's no way around it. You won't be able to do it. So that being said, we'll pop that 10 millimeter screw out, and then we're going to just pull the starter towards us. Sometimes it can get stuck on there a little bit because there's an O-ring in there, and it's been sitting on there since it was most likely manufactured. So what we'll have to do is go to the other side and kind of just tap it a little bit with a pry bar, and it'll pop right out. So these are the only 2 bolts that hold this on, and then of course you've got your starter lead, which goes to your starter solenoid. But there's only 2 bolts that hold this starter in. Then you'll be able to tap it from the driver's side, well, I guess as you're sitting on the machine, the right side, over to the left, which is towards the belt. So that's all we'll do, and I'll have the starter out, and then we'll check it out. All right, we've pulled our starter out, and we just need to put our new one back in. To put it back in, it's really as simple as just sliding it back into the hole, making sure your teeth align. It won't go in if the teeth don't align. You connecting your power back onto the side, and then reinstalling your 3 screws, of course, along with your little plate, and then slipping the belt onto the primary, and then bolting the primary back in, putting your cover back on, and being done. One thing I forgot to show you earlier is make sure you take a minute and disconnect your battery. If not, you could potentially ground out your battery. So just for safety, make sure you disconnect that. And that's really all there is to it, guys. If you like this video, if it's helpful, please take a second and click the subscribe button. Your subscription definitely helps me. I'll be able to continue to make these videos. And please click the like button. If you have any questions or if you're having any issues, go ahead and comment on the video. I do my very best to respond to all comments, and certainly happy to help you, because probably if you're experiencing the issue, then everybody else is as well. We want to make sure we all help each other. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.